Meet Mr. Tono from Indonesia. Mr. Tono is currently back home with his family after a terrible experience on board a foreign fishing vessel in the Indian Ocean, where he was injured and being held against his will, knowing that if he escaped, his family would never receive his wages. How did he get there? Did you know that both child labour and forced labour are on the rise? And time is running out to turn this trend around if we are to reach the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, Target 8.7, and end child labour by 2025 and forced labour by 2030. To reverse these trends, the ILO launched the 8.7 Accelerator Lab initiative, a new way to prioritise and coordinate development cooperation. How is this initiative different? The 8.7 Accelerator Lab is guided by 6 acceleration factors. Factor 1. Foster and develop political commitment to keep child labour and forced labour at the top of national, regional and global agendas, and foster a united front between governments, workers and employers. Factor 2. Address root causes to harness social dialogue to address the underlying causes of poverty, informal work, discrimination, lack of social protection, lack of free and good quality schooling, poor legal frameworks protecting children and workers, unfair migration and recruitment processes, lack of capacity of public labour inspectorates, and more. Factor 3. Focus on vulnerable populations to direct resources to where they're needed most, so no one is left behind. Factor 4. Create and share knowledge to make sure we adapt our actions to the evidence, giving ourselves and our constituents the best chance of reaching Target 8.7. Factor 5. Leverage innovation because progress needs and feeds on new ideas and their replication. Factor 6. Support sustainable financing to make sure our impact outlives our projects and activities. But how are we going to do this? At the global level, the Accelerator Lab team has developed an interactive map of interventions to identify gaps and replicable success stories. With a diversified selection of development cooperation interventions tailored to different national contexts, the 8.7 Accelerator Lab will foster success stories where child labour is almost history, exponentiate progress where there's potential, and get things moving where things have previously been overlooked. By pooling resources in the newly established multi-partner fund, we ensure progress is sustained. And with a sectoral approach, starting with the fishing sector, mining and agriculture, we can get to the root causes, leaving no stone unturned. What's been achieved so far? Remember Mr. Tono? The initial phase of the 8.7 Accelerator Lab focused on addressing forced labour in fishing, a sector with specific challenges such as workplace isolation and its transnational nature. Armed with new tools and inspiration from a recent workshop on how to detect forced labour in fishing, the South African authorities coordinated an inspection on Mr. Tono's vessel. They took him to hospital to treat his injury and ensured his wages were paid and his repatriation secured. Meanwhile, in Indonesia, legal and policy changes are underway and a migrant resource centre has been set up for migrant fishers to prevent unscrupulous private employment agencies exploiting vulnerable workers like Mr. Tono. At the regional level, we're working with regional fishery bodies to connect the dots between illegal fishing and forced labour and prevent vessels bypassing countries with tighter regulations. At the global level, the Accelerator Lab team established and is coordinating a digital technology project with partners working on innovative tools to prevent and detect forced labour on fishing vessels and to ensure enforcement officers can access and analyse data to be more strategic in their inspection efforts. The 8.7 Accelerator Lab is also piloting a brand new methodology to assess the prevalence of forced labour in fishing to uncover the many Mr. Tonos out there. Several funding partners have already gotten behind the initiative. The acceleration factors are working, the coordination mechanisms are working, the evidence-based methodologies for targeting are working. Will you join us? Find out how at ilo.org/87 Accelerator Lab.